together on the clearing process, step 5. Today is the day when you really learn how to go inside and make the shift that we've been working toward all along. And it's a huge shift. The time you're investing is so worthwhile. What you're going to find is that since this is a self-therapy, you're going to use this the rest of your life whenever anything comes up that previously you would have been blaming someone else for creating in your life. What we did in step 4 was called Own Your Life. And what we looked at is the fact that you've been repeating, not your fault, the same feelings over and over in your life in different situations. I say different faces, different places. Not meaning to draw these experiences to you, but doing it because Spirit was calling on you to clear them, to clear something that's been inside, that's been stuck, that you took on when you were very small. And what we learned in owning your life is that your biggest leverage is by going inside and changing that, not changing anything in your current situation. So what we did was we practiced finding something going on that you didn't like, didn't know how to handle, then identifying 3 feelings that come up for you in that situation and what kind of seemed to generate those feelings, what they were about. And then we looked all the way back through your life and found that those things have happened over and over. Today, what we're going to do is go back to your very young life. Not because you can remember exactly what happened to you when you were that little, none of us can, but because our subconscious remembers it all. And what we're going to do is poke at it with all the knowledge we've gained in the first 4 steps so that it gives up the information to us. And I don't just mean intellectual information. I mean it gives up the information that we haven't been able to see. We'll be able to find the truth. I like to call it, the truth will set you free. That's what we're doing now. So, when we're talking about going back to those young years, and I'm saying 2, 3, 4 years old, it's amazing because we're so vulnerable. I don't know if you've been around little children at all. If not, pull up some YouTubes and look at some of those short videos they have of babies and little kids. And you'll see how all we want when we're that young is to be loved and to laugh and to be happy and to be wild and to be allowed to yell and to learn and to be admired. The thing is, we can't do clearing work by remembering details from childhood. We can't get there by the intellect. It's all being held in the subconscious. And the particular emotion that we're seeking, the one we didn't know we had and couldn't have, is kind of like behind a wall. And what we're doing today is learning how to knock on that wall, how to start making a hole through it so that we get shown what it is that we're tired of, what it is that we want to bring up and dissolve. The only way we're going to do that is by re-feeling it, re-experiencing it. Even remembering something specific isn't enough to clear the feelings. It's still going to come up in us again. I want to read something from one of the books I've liked a lot as I learned how to do this work. Is called Healing Through the Dark Emotions by Miriam Greenspan. And she says about re-experiencing the feelings, being with a feeling in a state of awareness in which we don't avoid, cling to, try to fix, or try to understand, but are simply present. This is the process that makes the alchemy of a feeling, its transmutation, possible. And that's what we're doing today. Einstein, one of my heroes, said that imagination is more important than knowledge. And we are completely relying now on our imagination, imagining a specific time from when we were young, when we could have had the same 3 feelings that we experience in our life now when something really bugs us. So what we're going to be doing is play acting, actually, going back to pretending that we're that young self, the little self that's, we hear about the inner child stuff all the time, the little self that's still inside of us, maybe a long, long time ago, but the soul self knows. Our soul self knew exactly what was going on then, knew what it liked and didn't like, and it knew what it could let us feel consciously and what it had to hide in our subconscious to keep us safe in our childhood, to keep us feeling loved. So go ahead now and either use the current situation that we've been working on together, or if you want to use another one from your present life now, take it from your present life and identify those three feelings like you've learned how to do. Then look back into your childhood and take your time. Please make a pause here. Take your time and find one that in which you, knowing your family, you know what your parents were like. So find one that you could figure that you might have felt the three feelings that you've identified. Well, let me illustrate. One woman that I was counseling had a very difficult time in her childhood because her mother was pretty helpless, and her mother was always either in bed or crying, and she really did not mother my client. My client was on her own a lot of the time. So when I helped her go back into imagining some situation, she imagined one where she woke up in the morning and there was a bun, like a piece of bread in her bed, because her mother always wanted to sleep in and didn't want her to start crying because she was hungry. So her mother would leave something to eat in her bed. And sometimes it would be hours before her mom got up because she drank a lot. And so she remembered that situation because she knew that it had happened. And she remembered three feelings, which were sad and worried that her mother would never get up, and mad. But she didn't remember being mad. All she remembered was being sad and worried, tired of being there, ignored. And so when I was counseling her, when we were working together, she started crying and she was talking about the situation. She was doing fine with step 5, but she kept crying. And I stopped her and I said, "Why are you crying?" And she said, "Because I'm so sad." And I told her, that's not the emotion we're trying to clear. You've been crying your whole life about this, haven't you? And she said, "Well, yeah, I have." I said, "That won't do you any good. The one that it's time for you to work on is, why aren't you getting up? You're my mother." So as you go back into doing your clearing work on step 5, you're going to find three feelings, and 2 of them will lead you back to some appropriate situation when you were little. Use them. But then when you get into doing what I'm going to show you in a few minutes, you're going to really focus on the one that you weren't allowed to have, the feeling that you must have had, though, in looking back. Now I want to get to the one that I use the most for myself and that I teach the most because I think it's the most effective. And it's, well, we could call it psychodrama. It's acting out in some way what you think could have been going on that was so painful for you and you haven't ever been able to re-experience consciously. You've re-experienced it with other people in situations, but now you're turning toward it and re-experiencing it at source when you first felt it. So you're pretending that you're that child. And there's different ways to do that. One client that I worked with, this was so effective. She was sharing with me about something that went on. It was in the bathroom, and her dad was in there, and she was telling me about it, and she was getting really teary, and she was expressing her fear. And I said, "Okay, I'm going to pretend I come in the room." I stopped her and I said, "I'm going to pretend." So I pretended that I was the next door neighbor or something. I can't remember. And I opened that door and I came in and I said, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" And I started talking to her dad. And I started saying out loud how horrible what he was. I said, "Don't you know what you're doing to that child? She's going to carry this the rest of her life." And I pretended that he was just looking aghast at me, and I was reading him the riot act. And she told me later that that was one of the most helpful things in doing the clearing process was she couldn't feel her own anger, but she could feel my anger. And that let her really start to internalize the fact that what was done to her was wrong, and she had a right and actually a mandate to feel the anger about it. So I suggest that you can imagine yourself in the process and pretend that a third person comes in who's going to really speak the truth to power for you. Another way is pretend that you are holding yourself on your lap. You, the adult you, are holding your little child self on your lap and hugging them, maybe one arm around your little child self and saying, okay, honey, tell me what's going on. Tell me what's going on. You're going to grow up and you're going to be a big, wonderful person, but I want you to let me know what's going on. I want you to tell me the truth. The quickest and the best psychodrama is talking out loud, pretending that you can talk out loud directly to your parents. And if you do this one, I want you to do it loud, and I want you to repeat yourself over and over, because children who are frustrated will do that. They'll say, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Or they'll say, leave me alone. Or they'll say, don't hit mommy. You can't hit mommy. I love mommy. They'll say things like that. Swearing is okay. I tell people, I know you didn't swear when you were little, but use swearing because it will help you access your anger. You can even talk to a parent who has passed on. My most powerful clearing was when I was driving a car and I started realizing the stuff that happened to me and my sisters when we were little. And my dad had passed on, but I just talked to him. I read him the riot act. I swore. I told him how horrible it was. I was crying while I was driving. But that 20 minutes changed my life. So I know this is hard. I know this is not fun. But what you're doing is you're convincing your subconscious that you can now handle these feelings that it saved you from when you were little. I don't know how many times you're going to have to do it. Sometimes a person has one or two processes and it totally blows them out of the water. Sometimes it takes quite a number of times. We kind of have to convince our subconscious that we can handle it. You have to do it when you're by yourself. You don't want to take a chance on somebody else judging you. Even the people I work with, generally I have them do it on their own. It's hard, but I'll tell you, it's easier than years of therapy or staying powerless in some kind of situations in your life that you're so tired of and you haven't been able to change. And the results are so amazing. You're actually going to be shocked. When we do step 6 next, I'm going to share with you some things that people have shared after they've done the clearing process, the first 5 steps. The greatest motivator for me in my life to do this work all these years is because of how my life was transformed when somebody showed it to me. Completely transformed. I didn't just deal with a feeling. It freed me up to live in an entirely different way, little by little. And I'm also really, really motivated because it's so happiness producing to see someone else have that experience. So next we'll talk about step 6. Do not give up. Go for this. You can do it. Like I said last time, feelings won't kill us. It's just uncomfortable and it's not fun.